to Game Over Man Retro Gaming Podcast. Well, that music you just listened to comes from the original Pokemon Green and Red on the Game Boy, released in Japan, and it's the music from a place called Lavender Town. It was essentially a graveyard for dead Pokemon. Upon spending time in Lavender Town, it said that up to 200 children committed suicide due to listening to that music, because it alters your brainwaves and makes you want to end yourself. So I hope, with that knowledge, you can enjoy this podcast and the rest of your day. We're doing things a little bit differently here at Gomp. We've now gone through a fortnightly show due to me not wanting to edit every week, essentially. So for this Halloween special, we've got reviews from Liam, from Emily, from Rick, and from Alan. This music's ridiculous. But yeah, in all seriousness, some good reviews this week. I am made up with cold, so I'm just gonna let it rip. Let's go. Yeah, enjoy. Bye bye.
Hi guys, Liam here. Also follow me over at twitch.tv/The Gaming Numpty. I am going to review a game for a Halloween special. The game I'm going to be discussing and talking about is a game that I completed on my stream. It took me 3 days, and when I finally completed the game, it screwed me big time. This game broke so many joypads, TVs, and consoles. This game broke hearts, this game destroyed dreams, and just absolutely destroyed your life. It was the Dark Souls of our time. This game is Ghouls and Ghosts. That's right, Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super Nintendo. I'm not going to do all platforms because all platforms are pretty much the same, but the game I played most was Ghouls and Ghosts on the SNES. Now, Ghouls and Ghosts, like I said, was the Dark Souls of our generation. The game was released in 1988. It was released by Capcom. It originally came out into the arcade, which was the first time I played the game. But, you know, when you go into the arcade and you play a game and then you put it onto a computer, it's a completely different experience. So when I was a kid, my mum, when I first got my Super Nintendo, my friend was selling one, and we bought the Super Nintendo when I got it home. And I got Ghouls and Ghosts with it, and only Ghouls and Ghosts. I had no other games when I bought my SNES. So I unpacked this beautiful SNES, I set it up, I plug it all in, put Ghouls and Ghosts on, and you hear the music from Ghouls and Ghosts and the graphics, and you think, this is amazing. And my dream of owning a Super Nintendo came true. And then Ghouls and Ghosts basically pulled the SNES from under my arse, shoved it down my throat, pulled it back out my arse, and shoved it back straight into my throat again. That game destroyed me, and I spent hours and hours determined to beat the game, and it broke me. The game absolutely just destroyed me. Now, a game that would just do something like this to you and would break your heart in so many ways and makes it like, I nearly snapped my joypad so many times, and it was a brand new SNES and I didn't want to do that, but this game made me do it. Yet we still play the game, yet we still get destroyed by the game. And the game won Best Game of the Year when it first came out, and it's won Best Game of the Year a few times as well. So why do we love and hate this game? For you guys who haven't played it, it is just literally a side-scrolling 2D platforming game where you jump up and the whole world is at you. And I mean, when I say the whole world, you'll walk 3 steps and some coffins will come out the ground and some zombies will appear. Then a jumping wolf will jump out the tree and an owl will fly down. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous to try and get out of it. Like, it just puts you in so many frustrating situations. I mean, it's not like Mario where you can just run across, jump, land on a Goomba, hit the turtle shell, keep jumping. No, this you have to throw your spears or your axes or whatever you pick up. Even when you pick up the gold armour, it doesn't even... So there's 3 sets of armours, 2 sets, so you get the silver armour and the gold armour. Now, when you get hit with the gold armour, you lose your armour anyway. So it's absolutely pointless. Now, usually you would lose a gold armour, go down to silver, then go down to your skin. You don't. You lose the gold armour. So it's pointless having the gold armour. It just makes you look good. If anything, it makes you go a bit... It just makes you go stupid. It makes you do silly things because you think you're invincible. And it doesn't, and it's just pointless. Anyway, for you guys who haven't played the game, again, it's a 2D side-scroller. It's based on King Arthur trying to chase his princess that's been captured by some demons. Her name is Princess Prin. I'm pretty sure it's Prin. I knew it was something ridiculous because I hated the name, but I know it was easy to remember. So yeah, I'm sure that's right. But the weird story is that you know King Arthur and your Princess Prin are walking through a cemetery. Then all of a sudden Satan steals her. I mean, poor King Arthur for starters. But I mean, what? Who takes the princess out on a date in a graveyard? So what did you expect, Arthur? Anyway, so Arthur has to go through. All of a sudden, the whole world just decides that it's just going to try and kick your ass. And when I say try, it does. I mean, I can't even count the amount of times I've died on Ghouls and Ghosts. And it's not like Dark Souls where you die and then you come back alive. You know, you die 3 times and you're dead. You can get the odd continue. I can't remember if you get continues. I just remember getting 3 lives and losing him pretty much on the first level. So there's been tournaments with Ghouls and Ghosts. This is how big the game got, considering how hard it was. But it was also on Games Master, and people used to play it and see how far they could go. There was tournaments all over the world for people that you get 1 life and see how far you can go. And you know, I think there was only ever 1 person who ever got past the 4th level at the tournaments, which is insane. That just says a lot about how insane the game was. The thing that always questions me, and this is why I've done it for a Halloween episode as well. I mean, because obviously it's ghouls, ghosts, and demons, and you know, but it was mainly because it all evolved around death and anger, and like, not the game wasn't trying to be. Well, obviously it was with Ghouls and Ghosts, but it was mainly. I don't know if they purposely tried to trick you into thinking this was a good thing. Die. I mean, it's the craziest kind of weird game put together. It was like they saw Mario and went, I'll tell you what, let's put this up a notch. And someone put 50p in it instead of your Mario 10p. The Ghouls and Ghosts was 50p because it was just madness. I mean, there's only 6 levels in the game. 6. And it's so difficult. And the bosses are really difficult as well. I mean, sometimes as well, when you're even trying to shoot a chest, the chest would come out and kill you. You mean you just had no way of just knowing what was happening. You just had to go for it. I mean, sometimes it was pretty much sequence, so you could run through and it's sequence, which was pretty good because a lot of games weren't. But then every now and then, it just goes out of sequence, and that's when you die. But the game did teach you a lot. The game taught you how to control anger. It taught you how to concentrate on a game. I mean, if you sat down playing Ghouls and Ghosts and your mate walked away alone, you look left, you're dead. It was that easy. And even though I talk about the game and think how much I hate this game, because I genuinely hate this game. I think I hate this game, yet I love this game. I absolutely love the game as well. And the question is, why do we love this game? And the answer is, we have no fucking idea why, but we do. I mean, the game got that popular It was out on the Amstrad, it was out on the Amiga, it was on the Atari ST, the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, the Sega Genesis, it was in the arcade, it was on the SNES, it was on the Wii. There's been a remake that's just come out, which is like a completely full mastered version. It was on the Master System. It was just literally on everything. It just was released on everything because everybody just couldn't get enough of it. Yet we hate it. I mean, I went for the reviews and every single review was 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 91%, 92%, 90%, 9 out of 10. The game got such high reviews and Game of the Year. I mean, how? We do not know, and we will never know, and it will be always that game that was always in the back of our heads, and we thought, God, I hate that game, but I love that game. I mean, the graphics, going through it, the graphics were insane. And no matter what console you played it on, it still looked pretty much the same, except the SNES was just that little bit better for me. The SNES had better graphics and it was just a lot smoother to play. The arcade was up there as well. The arcade version was absolutely amazing. So the gameplay, let's go for it. So the gameplay review, fantastic, absolutely incredible, but extremely difficult and definitely not for the light-hearted. Definitely not a game that you want to start with when you get started in retro gaming. The other thing that I would like to say is the music and the graphics were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. There were so many different characters, so many enemies, so many different bosses, so many different armors and different weapons, and just the graphics and everything, and the land and the way the armor moved, just everything was just really good. It just worked really well, and it still works well. Even if you played it now, this game still works well. It is brilliant to watch. It's great. I mean, if you watch people play it on Twitch, it's so good to watch because you can watch them die over and over again, throwing their joypads. But then you watch people who can just absolutely smash it out of the water. So it's definitely one to just watch on Twitch or on YouTube and just watch people play it because it's just brilliant. All in all, I would definitely give this game a good 8 out of 10, and definitely, in my opinion, the greatest Halloween scary game. The other thing that I would like to discuss was when I was streaming it, and it took me 3 days to complete, and I finally completed it. Because I never completed it when I was a kid. I did when I streamed it, and I was determined to. The game literally gets the SNES back out the drawer, shoves it right back up your arse, pulls it out your throat, shoves it back up your arse again, pulls it out your throat, shoves it back up your arse. Because when you do complete the game, and please watch it on YouTube because it is the most ridiculous ending to all games. Otherwise this game would have actually got a 10 out of 10. But because of the ending, which I kind of love at the same time, this is the point of Ghouls and Ghosts, is that you love the game and you hate the game equally. Now, when you get to the end, it says, and you get your princess, and she walks up and you hug her, and it goes, well done, you finished the game, now to do it again. And that is the end. The game just continues on and on and on. There is no way out of this. That's all you do. That is Ghouls and Ghosts, and that is why this is my top Halloween game. I hope you enjoyed my review from the loo. I hope you all have enjoyed the rest of the Halloween episode, and I hope you will give Ghouls and Ghosts a try. Please message us on Facebook or YouTube, or just message me if you want to talk about Ghouls and Ghosts or any of your experiences with it. Just let us know. Thanks again, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that Ghouls and Ghosts rips you a new one like it did me. Take care, guys.
Hello everybody, it is DizzyBess here, and I'm going to be talking to you about a scary game which has been a big part of my life for the past 7 years, coming out in 2014. The game, or the game series that I am going to be talking about, is the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Now this is a series that is very interesting because it's quite simple in the way that you play it. The mechanics are not overly complicated. There's nothing that's too difficult about it in terms of what you're doing. You're literally sitting there opening, closing doors and looking at cameras for the majority of the games. More recent ones have been moving away from that, but yeah, you are a night guard and you're just trying to stay alive from these animatronics. But the appeal for me and a lot of people, and what really took a lot of people by storm, and by what piqued their interest about this game series, is the story and the hidden story that is behind it, of murder and cover-ups and ghosts and all these kinds of things. So much so that a whole community has been built around theorising of these games and looking into what the story is, trying to guess what the next game is going to tell us, what pieces of the puzzle are going to be unveiled, to the point that there are also books that have been made. They're not necessarily canon to the games, but they are relevant and do give you bits of information. There's potentially a movie coming out, still not sure on that one, but yeah, so this game series is very interesting because it's done what I don't think any game has managed to do in a very long time, and it's built an entire community around the story of it and the mystery, and it's got people talking about it constantly, and really invested in how it's going to progress and what's going to be unveiled and what's the fate of certain characters and things like that. And so for me, I think it's a bit of a cultural game in that it's a very simple game. It's not too difficult to play. Again, like I say, you're not doing much in terms of the actual mechanics, and the scares themselves, once you kind of get into it, they're not that scary. It's mostly jump scares, but there are other elements that make it scary, such as things in the story. And the later games, like I say, they are moving away from that simple mechanic. They have some other elements that make it scary, being in VR and things like that, and they look at different kinds of fear of like cyber fear and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting in how that they've done it and how it's been crafted, and the community that has been built just around the story. I don't think there are many games that are like that, where there's so many people invested in what's going to happen next in the story and coming up with different ideas, and the timeline of the games is a very interesting one, because the order of release is not necessarily the chronological order, and so trying to figure out where each game fits in the puzzle and in the story, and who is which character and things like that. So it's a very interesting game, and I don't think it's appreciated enough because it's often dismissed as just being a very simple game with jump scares, which, although that is true, the simplicity of it is a factor. And the jump scares, not everybody is really scared of jump scares. It's not the point of the games, or it's not the only thing in it. The games often have mini games and various different things that you have to look very carefully for, different endings that give you different pieces of information, and I think it deserves to be recognised as having a cultural impact and bringing people together, bringing more people into gaming. Five Nights at Freddy's has introduced a lot of people into other horror games and other gaming franchises, and I think it needs to be recognised. So for me, I would give Five Nights at Freddy's probably an 8 out of 10. The mechanics not being too great and the scares themselves not being overly impactful, especially once you've really gotten into the groove of how the game works. But the story is fantastic and is still going, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. It should be interesting to see. Thank you very much, guys.
Greetings, listener. and welcome to my crypt. Let us see which gaming classic has had an unexpected resurrection this spooky season. Who has come crawling out of their crypt from the twisting nether? Hi everyone, it's Rick here, and today I'm looking at Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. Now, as a kid, I had no chance of getting hold of this gory vampire game, and instead I had to make do poring over the epic details of its story in Games Master magazine. Even today, finding a copy of the game on the original PS1 isn't cheap, and Blood Omen has been completely absent from digital PC platforms, with no hint of a remaster, until this month, when the game magically reappeared on GOG.com for the grand sum of a $5. I had to pick it up. So, why is it back now? Well, before I talk about the gameplay, I need to talk about the development first, which was just as dramatic as the plot for the game. Around 1992, Canadian developers Silicon Knights were putting together impressive, menacing concept art for a planned epic RPG titled The Pillars of Nosgoth. They wanted a game that would appeal to the adult market, with a morally grey protagonist, taking inspiration from the Clint Eastwood western Unforgiven. This was coupled with inspiration from dark fantasy and sci-fi literature, such as The Wheel of Time, Necroscope, and The Pillars of the Earth, all of which resulted in the iconic story of the vampire Kain, a nobleman who is murdered and offered the gift of undeath by a necromancer.
I didn't care if I was in heaven or hell. All I wanted was to kill my assassins. Sometimes you get what you wish for.
They wanted to couple this with gameplay that would test the grey matter of the player, with a variety of weapons and armour, which would require switching between depending on the situation. The proposal for The Pillars of Nosgoth was sent out to numerous publishers. Crystal Dynamics loved the gameplay ideas, and the two companies agreed a partnership, with the game initially planned to be developed for the Panasonic 3DO. But, much like the capricious Kain himself, the studio hungered for more. After roughly 3 years of development, Silicon Knights lead Dennis Dyack and Crystal Dynamics lead Lyle Hall believed they should increase the budget of the game to match the scale of their ambition. And so, several staff members from Crystal Dynamics were drafted in to work on the project, changing the scope from a house to a mansion. Kain's story was getting the AAA treatment. The Crystal Dynamics team flew out to work in Canada. What followed was 6 months of intense development as the game neared completion. Creative differences saw tensions rise to breaking point, with frequent yelling matches around the office and the police even allegedly being called.
Ve Victus!
The end result was a new title, Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. The Panasonic 3DO release had also been scrapped, with the game now slated to release on the Sony PlayStation in 1996. There was talk of a Sega Saturn version, but this is hotly debated, with Crystal Dynamics saying the game was practically finished, while Silicon Knights claim it barely existed. The bad blood between the companies would even prompt Silicon Knights to demand that the credits wholly acknowledge that they produced the concept, story, and content of the game. Despite this, when the time finally came to consider a sequel, a legal case ultimately awarded the IP to Crystal Dynamics, who would then go on to produce the Soul Reaver series. After many years of cancelled projects and the disappointment of their long-planned IP, Too Human, Silicon Knights is no more. Another costly lawsuit concerning the use of the Unreal Engine was the final nail in their coffin. Seriously guys, you don't want to go up against Epic Studios' lawyers. And this may partly be the reason why this title has finally seen the light of day digitally. So what did over 3 years of development bring to Blood Omen? Firstly, the game has to be credited for absolutely nailing the dark fantasy atmosphere, with dingy dungeons juxtaposed with well-placed lighting effects to keep it from seeming too drab. Even the flaming sword that Kane can acquire later in the game will light up his surroundings as he swings it. This attention to detail is something you can see throughout the game design. The soundtrack matches this mood too, with just the right tone for each area of the game, including the creepy living doll dungeon. Trigger warning here folks, vampires are not the scary bit in this game. The most standout parts of the sound design has to be credited to the voice actors. It was surely the best quality voice acting in a video game prior to Metal Gear Solid being released. Simon Templeman, who voices Kane, manages to keep you invested in the story with an internal monologue detailing the character's journey.
I awoke to the pain of a new existence, in a dank womb of darkness and decay.
When the time finally arrives for Kane to interact with other characters, often with the sharp end of a sword, Templeman perfectly captures the utter disdain that Kane has for the world around him. Good and evil alike are treated with the same contempt by a man driven by vengeance and pulled by the threads of fate.
Out of my way, peasant! The stench of the fields hangs over you like a pall.
The king sees no one. He is in mourning for the princess.
He'll be in mourning for his kingdom soon, and he'll mourn for you even sooner if you don't get out of my way!
Ooh!
Other notable voices, such as the deviously baritoned Tony J, who plays the necromancer Mortanius, still stand the test of time.
You will have the blood you hunger for.
The CGI cutscenes, however, have not aged as well. They still depict graphic violence, but it's hard to take it seriously when the ancient vampire Vorador looks more like a CBB CGI cat than a bat monster from your deepest nightmares. The rest of the game's graphics were not at the cutting edge at the time it was released, with a top-down view and 2D sprites, which contrasts with the new 3D possibilities that the PlayStation opened up. This did mean that a wide variety of content could be crammed into the game, with loads of character models and tile sets, so each dungeon doesn't look the same, and there's plenty of different enemies for Kane to fight. That brings us to the gameplay. The development team largely nailed what they set out to produce. This feels like an ultra-violent Legend of Zelda or Gauntlet, but instead of collecting hearts though, you'll be drinking the blood of your enemies and the hapless captives who line the dungeon walls.
Oh, please, help me, kind sir!
Combat starts out feeling slightly tedious, but as Kane progresses, he does unlock magical items that let him shoot lightning, form barriers, and drain the blood from everyone on the screen at the same time. His armour and weapons also get an upgrade as you go through the game, with bone armour that lets you bypass weaker monsters, maces and axes that let you smash boulders or trees, and of course, the legendary Soul Reaver sword. These weapons and abilities let you access various secrets scattered throughout the game, and there are loads to find. Kane can also transform into other forms, with a bat form letting you fast travel, and this might be one of the earliest examples of fast travel in a game, and boy do you need it. He also gets a badass wolf form, a wraith form, and of course, gypsy form.
Accursed gypsies, bringing their wicked magic. Nosgoth will never be the same.
The latter lets you go about town without alerting the guards. That brings me to the last bit I wanted to discuss, Kane himself. Kane is an utter bastard. You can slaughter your way through towns to restore health, you can mind control and sacrifice villagers to get upgrades, and the game even has a day and night cycle so that you can creep into people's houses while they sleep, rob them blind, and feast on their blood. Kane is a refreshing protagonist even now. There's no real choice to do good in the game until the very end, and even then that feels totally opposed to his attitude throughout. He displays about as much empathy as your average politician. The story is fantastic, and it still holds up today. Kane is a more compelling lead in my opinion than his successor Raziel from Soul Reaver, and I wonder what direction Silicon Knights would have taken the game series if they'd retained the IP. It's quite possible, however, that without the intervention of Crystal Dynamics, it could have ended up on the 3DO and never sired a sequel at all. Overall, the game gets a strong 9 out of 10 from me, and with the game now being available digitally, without the huge loading times that plagued the original, there's never been a better time to sink your teeth into this release.
We are gods. Dark gods. And it is our duty to thin the herd.
Greetings people, happy Halloween. Gilly Wonka's game review time, and now I want to talk to you about Resident Evil. In particular, Resident Evil on the Sega Saturn. I played it on the Sega Saturn, a lot of people played it on the PlayStation, but everyone, when I was at school, there was a lot of people that was Silent Hill. I was more Resident Evil. I've never played a Silent Hill game. But anyway, that'll be for another review. So, Resident Evil, I loved it. It was the first game I played of that type as well. And once you get locked, in particular the first game, you got locked in the mansion, and you choose between two members. You got Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. It was just amazing because they both had different abilities as well. It was, Chris was more hand-to-hand combat, and then Jill had more sort of like firepower. And it was different because you had two different abilities like between the two characters as well, so it offered different types of gameplay. So you get locked in the mansion, and it was just the atmosphere of the game as well. It was like, so it was dark, you were confined to the mansion, but there were so many things to explore and puzzles to do as well. So you go round and you investigate things, and then you get led into a corridor, and you think, you go around this corridor and you see the zombie eating the victim on the floor, and you're just like, oh shit, this is about to go down. So he's crawling back and you make your first kill, and then it's just, you get sucked into the atmosphere of the game and you get drawn in. And it's one of my favourite gaming memories as well. It's just, you get further along the game and there's a bit where you go down a corridor, and it's just an unassuming corridor in the mansion. And when I was playing it, just to take you back to the memory of what I've got of the game, we all went round to my friend's house to play the game. We all sat in his front room, he fired the Sega Saturn up, and we closed the windows. It was pitch black in his house, and we're playing it. And you go around the corner and you see the zombie, and it's a bit of a scare, but it's not that bad. But when you go down this corridor and you hear the windows break and you see them fucking wolves jump through what I did, I'm not ashamed to admit it, I shit myself. I leapt up, turned the light on, and I sat there and we played the game with the light on. After that, I shit my pants. But yeah, Resident Evil, just to get back to the game, I loved it. It was one of the first games that I remember playing that I actually played it through twice with each character, just solving the puzzles, especially with Chris as well, because you had limited inventory as well, so you had to take stock of what items you got, because you could only have 6 items on you. With Chris, it was just, I just can't speak highly enough of the game. It was just, it was brilliant, and it had like 4 different endings as well. So you've got Chris and Jill escaping the mansion, and then you've got Chris or Jill escaping the mansion. Then you've got Chris and Jill escaping as the 2 survivors. Then you've got the worst ending where there's only 1 survivor. It was just everything was wicked. It spawned the whole series of games, like the remakes, and I think you're up to Resident Evil 8 or 9 now. I don't know, I've not played the last few, but yeah, definitely Resident Evil. If there is anybody that's listening to the podcast that's never played a Resident Evil game, I strongly suggest to go back to the start and play Resident Evil 1, because it is easily one of the top 3 in the series. Resident Evil 4 is my personal favourite, but obviously it's up to you. But Resident Evil is excellent. Happy Halloween.
Well, thanks for listening. If you like this, then click subscribe in your favourite podcast app. We are on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. You'll be able to find us if you just search Game Over Man Podcast. If you like watching game streams, get onto Twitch and check out Liam. He is the gaming Numpty. Emily is DizzyBess. And Rick is Ostentatious. If you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee over at Ko-fi. Or just basically spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your siblings about this podcast. Get us the listens. And at the moment on the Facebook group, Game Over Man Retro Gaming Podcast, we are running a competition to win yourself a SNES Mini, a Super Nintendo Entertainment System Mini. That's right, and all you have to do is go onto the group, find the post, and share it and tag one person. Give us a little story about what you used to get up to playing on your SNES when you were younger. If you didn't own a SNES like me, then don't worry about it. Just put a little story about how you wanted one, or how you played on your shit Commodore 64 that your sister wouldn't let you play on. And what I used to have to do is, if I used the Commodore 64, the tape deck had like a counter on it that went up when it played. She memorised the bastard numbers, didn't she? So I had to used to play the tape until it got to the exact same numbers it was when she left it. And she never knew. But yeah, that's nothing to do with the competition, but that would be my story. So get over there and win yourself something. All of the links will be in the show notes below, and possibly some more links to other things. Again, I'm here at the end of the show just rambling. All the reviews were very good this week. I particularly liked Alan's review this week. It was good. I particularly liked Alan's review this week. It was nice and sweet. Ta-ra!